Okay, now let's take a look at this, the actual implementation. Before actually I write actual Python code using Python idle, let's take a look at this printout. First, you need to write a class definition. So it's always starting with a class, right? This is keyword, and then the class name. In our case, its class name is a car, right? And then you first need to define all the attributes, all the properties of this class car. And these the attributes, like instance variable, right? These instance variables are typically, it must be defined in the constructor. So this underscore, by the way, is double underscore, and then there's on the double underscore this init, this initializer, or because it's constructor. So you have to define all those attributes or instance variable inside what? Constructor. In Python, the constructor's name always begins with underscore init. So for example, the model, the manufacturer, the owner, and the speed. So in this class car, there are 4 attributes, and then usually all this instance variable, they use a single underscore, as you can see, right? And then always start with a self. Self means just me. So basically, self means my attribute, a name called underscore model. Okay, so it's always with a self dot and then underscore menu. Actually, this underscore there is not such a rule. This is like a convention. So a lot of Python programmers, they use underscore. These instance variables always start with the underscore. Actually, okay. So this is like convention. And now, then if you look at this constructor, right? If you look at this constructor, it has the argument. Actually, it's the parameters, right? Inside this parenthesis, there's a lot of there's what 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. One is called car model parameter, and then menu F, manufacturer, and the car owner and speed. And the self is, you have to just put it there. This is a syntax, okay? If you look at this init, the definition of init, this init is a functions, right? You see you have a div, and then the name of the functions, and these are the parameter names. Syntax-wise, there's not much difference between the method or the constructor and the typical functions except the self. So self is whenever you write a method or function inside a class, you have to use if you look at the parameter, it always start with a self, as you can see, self. So these are just a syntax that you have to follow. But anyway, so the car model, right? It's there's some value will be passed to this car model, and that value will set the initial value for this model. And then menu fetch F, right? The main, right? When the object is created, the value will be passed to manufacturer, and this MA, right? And this value will initialize underscore menu, the instance variable. The car owner, right? When the object is created, some value will be passed to this variable car owner, right? This car owner. And then the value will set the initial value for the underscore owners, right, which is an instance variable. And then same, likewise, let's say 20 is 20 miles per hour is, let's say, passed to the speed, right? Then the underscore speed, which is instance variable, right? The value of the instance variable is initialized to 20. Okay, so this is so the main job of the constructor is what? Initialize the value of all this instance variable, like these attribute values. Okay, so that's important thing to know. Now, I just wrote one, if you look at this example, I just wrote one set method to set up the speed, and then I wrote one get method to get the speed of the car. But actually, since we have a four attributes, right? Four instance variable, let's say car model, and then we have manufacturer, and then car owner, right? And then speed. So we need two functions, two methods for each variables, like one get method and one set method for the car model, right? And then one set method and one get method for the manufacturer instance variable, so two, right, etc., right? So basically we need to write 8, in total of 8 get method and set method. Okay, so I'll talk about, and then if you look at the next method, the string method, I'll talk about this later, right? But let's just implement this first. So first I'm going to implement this constructor, right? And then I'm going to write a main. And in the main, I have created, so this car is what? Class name, right? And then and the CRV, and then Honda and Jessica and 60. So I have just created a car object of the class car, and then you know that the first, look at this is like first argument, right? CRV. So the CRV is passed to this car model, right? And then the Honda is the next argument, and so the manufacturer, right? The Honda will be passed, and then car owner is what? Jessica, right? And then if you look at the speed is 60. So if you look at this constructor, the value 60 is passed to the speed, and set the value of the instance variable underscore speed. So what happened is, if you look at the main, the car1 is something called a reference variable. So the car1, so you remember that whenever you have an equal sign, anything to the left is a variable, right? So you just create a variable called car1, especially if in this case, if its variable is pointing to an object, we call it a reference variable. So the car1, the reference variable, is created and pointing to an object. Okay, it's not a class, right? It's created this is object, the object of what? The class car, right? So this is pointing to this object, and then what? The car model is what? CRV, and then manufacturer is Honda, right? Oops. And then the name of the owner is Jessica, and right now this car is driving at 60 miles per hour. So this car1 is a reference variable, and then now it's pointing the moment when you use the class name, and then you listed all the arguments, right? That means the car, the object is created, and that object is pointed by the car1 reference. Now, and these are the values of the attributes, instance variables. And this is what? This is the attribute sections. And by the way, these values are set by the constructor, init, right? Now, we have what? We have a behavior section, right? Behavior. So this behavior section, as you can see, we have what? We have a get speed, and then a set speed and get speed, and then underscore string functions, right? These are the what? So these are the method. So in the method sections, it has what? Definition, what? Set speed, and the definition get speed, and then what? Definitions underscore string self. And then at this point, I'm going to only implement the get speed and set speed, but you should implement total of 8 get and set method, as you can see. Okay, now let's implement this using Python idle. Okay, so that's going to be my topic of next lecture. So let me just stop here.